And from the front pages of your newspapers to the front of your television screens, we bring you the captivating stories where we delve into all the things that have been trending during the week here on The Headliner. Ladies and gentlemen, we introduce you to this week's episode where journalism has taken a left turn, a right turn, where there's a divide and disconnect. Now, facts versus opinions. We've seen this in the recent upsurge of matters around the DJ Ola and Holy 10 issues. But to carry this story and in this quest for more information, I'm not alone. I am joined by the gorgeous, the marvelous Kim Sibanda. Kim, how are you doing?
I'm good, Kurtley. How are you doing?
Such a pleasure to be having you on The Headliner this week.
It is a pleasure, definitely. This is The Headliner, where we give you the current news on the headlines, current thought-provoking stories that are coming to your screens weekly. And definitely we are not alone. Today we are with Mr. Nigel Nyamutumbu, and he is a media practitioner with over 20 years under his belt from the Media Alliance, doing very well for himself. Nigel, welcome to the show.
Thank you. It's a pleasure being here.
Definitely. Well, there's a lot happening. This issue that Kurtley has just alluded to.
Do you not feel weighed down by some of the matters we're about to discuss today?
Well, look, it's quite topical, it's quite relevant, and it's indeed time for us to reflect on what is happening, on the internet and what we need to address and be thinking about.
So this is a matter around journalism being in the digital space, but we are traditional people, TV and radio. So we put digital versus TV and radio. How do you weigh the facts there?
Yes, I think what is clear is that journalism has evolved, and with the emerging digital technologies and so forth, the way the craft is actually being practiced is also in its own sense changing, shifting and so forth. But the very essence and fabric of what makes journalism, that is accuracy, that is balance, that is credibility, has not changed. It remains the underlying, and it remains what would make journalism. Anything else is just a free marketplace of ideas. It is just people expressing opinions. It is just, people interacting online. But if it is journalism, whether it is practiced online, on radio, on print, here on television, if it is accurate, if it is using credible sources, it is a science of verification. That is all what journalism is about. Anything else is, anybody's game.
Absolutely, and we look forward to that conversation, Kim, and obviously Nigel will be delving more. I think it's quite weighty, but I do know we have other weighty conversations that we also have to bring with regards to our headlines, Kim.
Definitely, we do have. Of course, he says that scientific verification is needed, especially if you are going to be looking at yourself as a journalist. So, other stories as we kick off, coming from the Chronicle. This one tagged, "The President opens doors to vendors." Now, the story reads, demonstrating his open door policy, President Mnangagwa met representatives of the vendors at State House in Harare, where the issues afflicting the sector were discussed. Now, the president said that the Second Republic's attempt to formalize the informal sector should not be perceived as a threat and rather be an initiative to create order and sanity in the sector. So what do you think about this one, Kurtley?
Absolutely, very important with regards to also formalizing an informal sector, creating opportunities through different routes and ways in which I do believe the informal sector actually occupies a massive part of our gross domestic product.
There we go. Another headline coming through. Hope at last as Kariba picks up brutal power cuts set to ease notably in the coming weeks. Now, the country should begin to experience improved electricity supply soon, and exceptionally well, as this is a pivotal situation happening at the Kariba power plant, where they will start operating at high capacity in the coming few weeks. Now, the executive chairperson of the power utility ZESA, Sydney Gata, confirmed this to the authorities and said they would soon engage with Zambezi River Authority with the intention to steadily increase energy production in Kariba.
Absolutely. And Kim, we move on to the H Metro, which was tagged miner electrocuted in a shaft mine. And now a miner who was extracting gold ore with other employees in a mine shaft about 100 meters deep died after being electrocuted. And of course, there is an important stature as well as a perhaps statute in this nation for responsible mining, as well as also mining safety also being important. I do know, Kim, this is a very pertinent issue and topical matter that you perhaps want to chime into.
Definitely. Being from a mining background, it is something that is very, very, very important. The other day I was talking with a friend of mine about how important it is for the practice of shek in all these mining practices, because you'll find that a lot of the mines that are not under any statute are really putting a lot of people to harm, and there has to be something to be done about it, because you don't look at it from the mining perspective, you look at it from the community, because it affects the community.
Absolutely.
When you look at contaminated water, when you look at all these uncovered pits that are happening, it affects the community. So of course something does have to happen there.
All right, absolutely, and we take it from there. And of course, we actually conclude and close off this particular segment where we have brought you the headlines, everything to do with some of the topical matters that we have been looking at throughout this week. And yes, we are going to be delving into this very fascinating conversation. Please do stay tuned, and of course, it is very critical for you, if you are a journalist or someone who has interests within even just the entertainment circuit, to stay tuned here on The Headliner, as we'll be bringing you more. We have Nigel Nyamutumbu in studio, a journalist, seasoned journalist of note from the Media Alliance, and of course, Kim and myself will be grilling him on this particular matter. Don't go anywhere. This is The Headliner.
Definitely. All right, we are back right here on The Headliner. Of course, ever joined with the sharp, ever looking sharp, Kurtley Gwindi. How are you doing?
I'm very well. I appreciate the compliment.
Definitely, we are back to talk about these cutting-edge stories that are making headlines, and one that kind of centers.
Do you want to know who I dress like?
Yes.
DJ Ola.
I couldn't see that one coming, because I was about to say one that actually comes to our side of the circle for radio and TV. What do you think about the Ola issue?
Oh, well, look, there has been an outburst on social media with regards to very different schools of thoughts, opinion, as well as ideas around this very, very controversial interview that did happen over the past week. And of course, it did also implicate many other big names, but at the same time, our question of the day is not necessarily about some of these prominent individuals who are named in the conversation, but obviously about the ethics of journalism that go around. I'm going to make it very controversial, and perhaps I'll begin with our very special guest, Nigel, here. Nigel, is it okay for anybody to just start a podcast and say they're a podcaster and therefore or thereby I am now probably an accredited or acclaimed journalist in the same breath or vein?
Well, you do not become a journalist by merely starting a podcast or by merely having access to a camera
and a microphone,
and so forth. Not to suggest that the program in question, the Ola, is not about journalism, but to just simply say every sort of citizen has the right. I think Section 61 of our Constitution is quite categoric that the freedom to express oneself in various forms, whether in speech, in deed, in action, online, in offline spaces, is guaranteed in the Constitution. It is not just a privilege of journalists. I think back in the day, it was us in the media space would wield the power as the fourth estate, as it were, that people would wait to watch the news, to stay in touch with
To get the facts.
information, to get the facts,
Yeah.
and so forth. But right now, we are living in the digital age, in the information age, where at any given point, there is information right on the fingertips of citizens. And this is obviously something that is noble and positive, but it has its fair share of challenges because within it, there is obviously some pollution, information that is either guided by an agenda to deliberately malign or to deliberately disinform, or information that comes from a misinformed perspective. Because I often say the role of the media is to inform, educate, and entertain. But we assume that those that are informing are themselves informed or are themselves educated. So you find that a lot of the things that we are now consuming online sometimes do come from a misinformed perspective, and sometimes also do come from a confirmation bias, as it were, where your preferred source or your preferred angling of certain stories becomes the truth, when in actual fact it could just be opinions and it could just be, information doing rounds. And that is not necessarily the purview of journalism. The purview of journalism is to ensure the sanctity of facts, of truth, and to ensure that the information that is out there is credible.
Absolutely.
I want to come in there, Nigel, and just say that I have a boss of mine who says everything is okay until it's not okay. So Ola has been doing these podcasts for a while now, and he's had various guests coming in saying a lot of things. But at the same time, with fact-checking, information verification, there has an issue about the journalist and their guests. Is there something one would want to know that you can do about the guests that you bring in, and exactly how much they will say or not say, how much they will react or not react?
I mean, for example, you're a guest today.
And things can go out of control. Is there something that we can do about that?
Well, the difference between a podcast and the platform that we have here is essentially that here we've got gatekeeping.
Oh, yes.
We've got delay mechanisms that are provided for by law, by the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe, the regulator, which stipulate that, because ultimately, if I am to say anything here on this particular show, it means the editor or the executive producer of this, particular, whether show or broadly speaking, of the broadcaster is also held accountable, because it is the both myself as someone who is giving an expert view, and the broadcaster that has given me the platform, who then should be accountable to the public. Now, in the event of a podcast where you don't necessarily have to be registered, so in other words, the accreditation with the Broadcasting Authority of Zimbabwe, one does not need to be accredited to get a Facebook account.
That's true.
All you need is
internet
and
a good phone.
and a good phone, maybe, and
Like
so
some
forth.
lighting, maybe.
You don't need a license to speak, to converse.
Yes.
Even if it comes at some monetary value or benefit to yourselves, because it is fact now that a lot of social media influencers and a lot of these platforms are actually eating into the cake of what would be ordinarily the terrain of legacy media. Advertisers are now finding it more viable
to go to
support, because that's where the numbers they
Numbers
deal
are.
with.
I want to chime in on that.
They deal with numbers.
Yeah.
So, but ultimately, there is no law that prohibits any person to start a podcast and there is no real, regulatory framework to ensure that whatever is said there, ethical standards and ethical guidelines are followed. We have a way of ascertaining and finding out where this particular information is, basically standards to ensure and entrench accountability.
Nigel, I want to hold you there. I want to talk about the Data Protection Act. Is it applicable here in Zimbabwe? Looking at the fact that some individuals that were mentioned, there might be a need to protect individual reputations as some damage because of the misinformation was done. Is there something that can be done with the Data Protection Act right now in Zimbabwe?
Now, the Data Protection Act is actually something that we should seriously confront and dialogue as to how we can ensure safe spaces online. Because what the Act does, it amends certain sections of the Criminal Law Codification and Reform Act, in particular Section 164, that then deals with disseminating of information that incites public violence.
Absolutely,
the question around cyber harassment, cyberbullying, and all those. I think one thing that the law lacks at this particular juncture is its ambiguity. It's not as specific to the extent that you can then follow up and prosecute accordingly, insofar as protecting citizens is concerned. So yes, no one really would want cyberbullying. We know free expression has its limitations insofar as hate language is concerned, insofar as incitement to violence is concerned. We know that the question of cyber harassment is of concern, but the how and the definitive actions and measures are not carried in terms of the law in this particular stage. So, which is why it then became difficult in the particular case that we were discussing with DJ Ola and Wally 10, where it then became difficult for the state to do anything, particularly to support the complainants, because who defines the level of harassment? Who defines at a criminal level? I think civil defamation is one thing. To say you have defamed me and I have lost potential, or I've been harmed by the information that you have said about me, and then you take the civil route. But if it's going to be a criminal route, we now need to really reflect and say, where do we draw the line?
And
what
where
are the
is the crime?
parameters?
Absolutely.
And where is the crime? So we need that broader discussion. As the Media Alliance of Zimbabwe, for example, we have been working with a government, engaging government on a media law reform process. And part of our issues are actually with the Data Protection Act, because yes, we want to ensure that citizens feel safe online. We want to ensure that whatever it is that happens online can be, promote a conducive environment for a free marketplace of ideas and for sharing information. But we want it to be done in a democratic manner and in a way that would promote both the rights to citizen safety and to free expression.
Absolutely, free expression, and obviously the idea of also keeping our policies being at the helm of protection of each and every individual in Zimbabwe, but also giving freedom to journalists like Kim, Nigel, and myself. But we are going to take a short break as well as bridge the gap between this conversation, as we'll be talking all things more to do with this case, particularly drawing a bigger picture with regards to how best we can move forward as a country and as journalists. Now, you still don't want to be missing what we'll be discussing in the third conversation. This is The Headliner. Don't go anywhere.
Welcome back to the third and final segment of The Headliner. And of course, we are talking about that controversial issue that everyone had their tails, tongues, everything wagging about the issue of the Ola podcast. Now, we are here, obviously, with Mr. Nigel Nyamtunu, and he is talking about it in a very passionate way. Mr. Nyamtunu is coming through and saying, I am from the Media Alliance, and there needs to be some kind of governance that happens around journalism, around the ethics, around all the things that we are doing as journalists as we practice. Curtly, how do you feel about that?
Well, he has brought a wealth of matters to the table, but perhaps we're going to divert it a little bit with regards to one word that I'm just going to throw on the table, Nigel and Kim, and this is being liberal. Now, we've seen an advent, an exodus of what they call content creators, what they call influencers. People who obviously have a voice and opinion that is seemingly mattering in society at this point in time. How best have we been able to differentiate now the clear picture of these individuals vis-a-vis journalists like yourself, like Kim? And perhaps also, is there a manner or way in which we can then navigate some of these ethics? Because clearly, I know one individual who has more influence than me as a journalist, but they're just a content creator. They have more numbers. They have a bigger voice. Not to disrespect your voice, you've got a very big one. But at the same time, we do know that these individuals perhaps need the media training, need the right channels, need the right individuals to teach them, or perhaps to just train them, or give them an anchoring that also makes them politically correct, diplomatically correct, etc. Are there channels in which that can happen within the policy structure you're talking about?
Yeah, I think the challenge has actually been us as journalists. Perhaps we envy these likes, these influencers to an extent that instead of us preserving the integrity of our profession, and in terms of us mitigating information as we are supposed to do, to verify it, to let it go the normal channel, of packaging information. We also now want the likes. We now want to be bigger than the broadcasting houses or the media houses that we come from. We now want to become authorities in ourselves and enjoy, that particular followership. And that has created a further mess. Why? Because at the end of the day, because of this likes and the drive to wanting to be, say, brand ambassadors is something that is now, fashionable in this digital age.
It's the pop culture now.
We are missing the real essence of us being the salt, of the information system, which preserves, the truth, which cleans out, all this other bubble. So what we've also then seen is some collaboration. I think we are getting some social media influencers now becoming employed as presenters or as show hosts, and at some instances even as journalists and so forth, which is also good. It speaks to that collaboration. But I think what we should and what Zimbabwe needs is a media literacy campaign, a media literacy policy to educate our people and to have a discerning, to educate, number one, these podcasters. They wield so much influence. They need to know their ethical obligations. They need to know their professional expectations. They need to be guided and be equipped with the function of both media policy, law, ethics, and so forth. But we also need, more importantly, to even educate the citizens that they must not take everything that they hear and see, hook, line, and sinker.
Yeah.
Because, I mean, even now in the age of artificial intelligence, where there is voice cloning, where there is deep fakes and everything, we need to have, you know, an educated and literate citizenry that can be able to decipher information.
All right, Nigel, I just want to come in with the issue of liability. Now, a lot of things are said, like what you're saying. You can say what you want, you can do what you want on your platforms, rightfully, because they are yours as a content creator, as a podcaster, wherever you are. Of course, there has to be some kind of media training that we are doing. But I just want to talk about who is liable once something does go wrong, in this instance with the DJ Ola podcast. Is it the interviewer? Is it the interviewee? Is it the sponsors behind the scenes? Is it the numbers?
That's a deep question.
Who do we blame
That's a deep question.
when it comes to this?
Well, from a media, you know, point of view, in terms of, as I said, the Broadcasting Services Act, it is, you know, both the interviewer, the interviewee, and the in particular.
Please note you are being quoted.
and the particular media stable, you know, the platform.
The platform.
Yes, but that is insofar as you know, a journalistic and a media a recognized platform. In other words, the one that has been accredited or registered in terms of the Broadcasting Services Act. Now, if this is a citizen, you know, just interviewing and engaging, I think then the regulatory framework becomes a little more different. But suffice to say, at no point should we then move to criminalize, as it were. Let's use the civil routes to try and engage, and let's try as much as possible to equip the citizens that are engaged in those platforms to say you cannot say something about the left side without balancing it.
Yes, absolutely.
With the right side, we cannot let it, you know, just
absolutely.
like
which then brings me to my question. I did allude to it very, very quietly earlier on with regards to where does this balance come from? How best do we bridge the gap and perhaps bring about awareness between these media outlets and perhaps the Zimbabwean journalists, and then bring in the picture of the influencers, and then the brand ambassadors, like you've said. How do we then create a system in which there's a holistic approach that only has one target? Facts, facts, facts.
Well, that has to be the prerogative of the ones that are doing the podcasts. I think their currency, because they also get advertisers, they also get audiences. Some of them actually want to be taken seriously. So for those that want to be taken seriously, we need to then find a mechanism of roping them in the terrain of what would be a credible platform, and would then need to have a framework of them having a code of conduct, them being accountable, and them really having a buffer between them and the citizens. So that is one way of looking at it. But for those that want to just be free and you know, really don't care about ethics and really don't care about credibility, well, we can't do much about them.
We can like, we can comment.
But serve to edge citizens. Because you see, the currency of media, what we sell or what makes us sustainable,
absolutely,
is us being credible.
Yes.
That is what we sell. To say what we give you is accurate, has been verified, is objective, is ethical, and it's information that you can trust, right? So we sell trust. So if you are just a social media page and you just enjoy the likes or the followership.
Any
just
names,
enjoy.
sir? Any names?
No. I will reserve my right
To not comment.
to not comment on,
Absolutely.
on any particular names. But citizens know real and credible information when they see it. And they know that, no, this is just but rubbish.
All right, there we go. We need to talk about credibility, to entertain, to inform, as well as to educate. And that is really the baseline of any journalist. We're looking at podcasters, we're looking at influencers, and looking at what is right at the intersection of all that. We've had an amazing time right here, Kurtley. What do you think?
Absolutely. We're also looking at a big man with a big voice, Nigel, in capital letters. We thank you so much for coming to the show.
No, it was a pleasure, and we really look forward to
More and more
conversation and a cleaner internet and social media space.
Absolutely.
Yes, wonderful.
And yes, we are so excited to be bringing you this episode of The Headliner. Very informative, insightful, and yes, more and more will be coming here on your screens, here on a ZBC. And please make sure you do catch us at same time, same place. I have been joined by Mr. Nigel of the Alliance Media, and of course, the beautiful, the marvelous, the gorgeous, and of course, succinct with the words, Kim Sibanda, where we've been breaking it down, chopping it up, and dissecting the conversation here on The Headliner, where we bring you weekly updates of all things trending here on your premium broadcaster, ZBC. And of course, you always have to make sure you catch up with us for all the verified facts here on our channel. Now, my name is Kurtley Gwindi from the crew behind the scenes, my co-presenter, and of course, my awesome guest. It is a pleasant viewing, and God bless Zimbabwe.